Y'all, y'all, y'all ready for this?
Hey, welcome to Trainable, the video podcast where we all engage in radical, honest conversations to simplify, socialise, and kickstart our wellbeing journey. Join me as I'll chat with experts from various fields from all around the world, together with mates and everyday people like you and me. Together, we'll unravel the challenges we face in our daily lives and extract those valuable, trainable insights, cutting through all that noise out there in the industry. Think of Trainable as your virtual dinner party where we break down the complexity without the need for a PhD and focus on taking those simple steps to become better than we were yesterday. We're all on our unique journeys and there's so much to learn from each other. I can't wait to share these enlightening conversations with you. It's a special day for me today because I've got three people here that have had a real big impact on my life. So it feels like a dinner party of friends today. I thought I might just kind of start by saying thank you, Donna. I've kind of thinking Rachel and I came and visited you maybe, I don't know, 15, 20 years ago. And since then, I've been able to try and maintain it. And 90, mate, welcome. I think what's really impactful for me today is I've got two guys, Adam Knight and my brother Lincoln, who I care deeply for. So thanks very much for coming on today. And also you've had a major impact on my life, like over the last kind of 12 months as well, obviously it's been kind of documented that I've kind of had my own health struggles and, when I've had my back against the wall, you guys have been there as well. So I really appreciate that. But I think, what I want to kind of touch on today is that, around health and wellness and, life kind of moves through really quickly. And I even know when I was not well, it just kind of sneaks up in from time to time. And, I honestly really care about you guys. And I think last week, night, you were up in Queensland, kind of having a bit of social wellness, kind of getting together and kind of catching up, which was good. Mate, like, how are you tracking at the moment and how are you feeling and how's life for you at the moment, mate?
Oh, look, it's probably pretty average. I dare say it's probably the worst it's sort of been through my life. I've had a couple of pretty major traumatic experiences over the last 6 months as well. Obviously, as you know, my gallery got flooded, my business got flooded in October, and then my father passed away in February. And there's been a few other little things going along. My business has probably doubled every year for the last 3 years as well, which is people would obviously say is a good thing, but it's had effects on me as well. So obviously COVID, I mean, like all of us.
Yeah.
So it's been a bit of a tough patch for the last couple of years.
And how's that kind of permeate for you, mate? Like from a health perspective, where do you find yourself at the moment?
Well, you get obviously factors that tell you that you actually need to do something differently in a health from a health point of view, but you find it very hard to maintain it because you're getting pulled in multiple directions, and even psychologically, you're sort of battling to just get things done rather than planning out health regimes and so forth. So I find it very difficult to stick to anything.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm giving things a shot, but they're not really lasting, and obviously it comes at a pretty great cost.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And Link, mate, we've kind of just gone through the journey with Adventus as well, and you're kind of branching off into a new career as well. You got family, all these different times. I mean, you're probably one of the most intelligent guys I know as well, academically, and also one of the more inspirational fellas going around as well. And I feel like grateful that, you're my brother and we've been so close through these times. And we have a lot of deep discussions as well around health and wellness. And, I kind of worry at different times about you as well. And so, I mean, for you at the moment, where are you at the moment from a health perspective?
Yeah, well, it's great to be here with my big brother and some great people and friends. It's interesting. I'm probably in a different place to Adam. I feel like I'm in the greatest part of my life, but I'm not balancing it very well. Came out of, I think like there's 3 phases in my life, and I'm in that final phase where I'm doing exactly what I want to be doing, but I'm just not doing it very well. The first phase was I joined the military, probably inspired by our dad. Second phase was working with you, inspired by you. And now I'm getting back to what I probably my core passion, which is service to the community. So I'm studying paramedicine, which is quite ironic considering we're talking about my health, whereas I want to help other people with their health, but I'm not doing a great job with my health. And also being a senior meteorologist for the Bureau, which is another story. But both are, serving the community. But when it comes to me at the moment, I think I'm just not balancing all of that really well, because you're trying to study, work full time, balance family. Got married this year. I feel like a bit of a yo-yo. Like, I set targets, I surge, I get healthy, and then I just it yo-yos back to being unhealthy. So, and everyone talks about a sustainable lifestyle, but I just can't find it. I can't find that
Yeah.
sustainable lifestyle. So that's kind of where I'm at, and I hope to learn some stuff from Donna today, because we've got maybe 40 years left, and I don't want to eat into that and make it less. I want to enjoy this next phase of my life. I wouldn't say I feel like I'm completely lost the plot health wise. I'd say I'd be hopefully similar to a lot of people, who's just making little poor choices all the time, and that seems to be impacting, eventually leading to bigger health problems, and it just creeps up on you. It's
Yeah.
not like doesn't just happen one day. It happens over a period of time, and then to get it back, it takes a long period of focus and discipline, and it just gets harder and harder as you get older.
So true. It kind of feels like it gets daunting sometimes, doesn't it? Like, it feels like a road back. But I mean, like, it's really fascinating, because obviously being like a part of, our lives together over a long period of time, we're also disciplined in so many ways. And,
It's ironic.
yeah, ironic. And we've got, like Adam, like with your business, like, it's so inspirational, a champion for Indigenous art around Australia as well, and amazing entrepreneur. And the same with you, Link. So it's kind of like, it's really interesting. And I imagine so many people feeling that way. And this is why we've got Donna here today, because, I mean, Donna's worked with celebrities, with athletes. I think you got a hands full with us three here today. But I think, and we chat along with our mates a lot as well. And it seems that it just seems to be, diabetes, heart attacks, stroke, all these different things seem to be mounting at the moment. Yet there's just so much information out there. Like, it just feels like health spam, and you're trying to make the complex simple and the simple compelling. And I think it just blows our head. And in the end of the day, we just want to put the doonas back over our head and just kind of think, oh God, how do we actually start? But what where do we all start with all of this, and where's the fallacies, and where do we need to be starting to think this through, I guess, to be able to make those kind of trainable changes for ourselves?
It's a great question. And as you said, I think even post-COVID, there are so many people now finding themselves in this situation, probably even more so. I have several clients who are sort of high-level business people who have described it now as, through COVID, I suppose they just kept working and working and working, and there was no break because we couldn't travel and we couldn't leave. So they just
Yeah.
kept going.
Mm.
And so they didn't realize that, a couple of years later, particularly if you lived in Melbourne with all the lockdowns, that, all of a sudden we haven't had our toes in the sand or had any sunshine for a really long time. And it's had a huge impact on people's physical and mental health. Then you've got, so much spam, as you said,
Mm.
and so many experts or so-called experts that we can now readily access through so many platforms. So there's so much noise out there when it comes to health. Usually people trying to sell you something at the end of the day. So they all have their own agenda. And somewhere along the line, none of them agree with each other. Even the reputable experts find it hard to agree with each other on this topic. So how is anybody else supposed to figure it out?
Exactly.
It becomes an absolute minefield, and then I think it just gets put in the too hard basket. And there's so many things that seem so complex that we have to do that people just throw their hands up in the air, push it to one side, and just keep motoring ahead.
So where do we start? And also today, as part of this, we've all taken some blood tests to kind
Yeah.
of see where our baseline is as well. And I think, when we started thinking about the podcast, the philosophy is kind of simplify, socialize as we are today and kind of start. But I guess at the moment it's trying to simplify. So when you start looking at that, can you start kind of working us through, some of the areas there that may be things that people are told that may not necessarily be accurate from your perspective, and maybe, start unpacking us, God help us, and trying to see, maybe giving us a little bit of insight where we could maybe making some better choices in our lives.
I think the things people tend to notice on the outside first. So, if you're going to notice anything about your health deteriorating, maybe you gain a bit of weight, maybe your pants don't fit so well anymore, maybe your shirt's sort of a bit tight, maybe you're feeling tired, you're not sleeping very well. You might feel a bit down in the dumps. There's all these things that we notice from the outside, but they're all really triggered from what's going on underneath the waterline. So, what's going on the inside. So, that's why I always start with pathology testing.
Mm.
Usually, if you go to the doctor and have a blood test done, you have your blood drawn, and then you get told that they'll be in contact if something's wrong. And then, if you don't hear from them, another year or two goes by. And you don't really learn about what those results mean. So for me, like anything else in our life, if you have a foundation of knowledge, if you actually understand what those numbers mean and how you actually have quite a bit of control over changing them, it's far more compelling to start making changes to your diet and to your lifestyle if you know it can actually make a significant difference. It's not about going down a size in your jeans or looking good when you go on holidays. Those things would be lovely, but are they really important enough goals for us to make major lifestyle changes? No, they're not. And often people will wait until they get a really significant fright with their health. They might have a heart attack. They might have a stroke. They might get cancer. There could be something that happens, which is the thing that compels them to actually start thinking about their health. And if they survive that fright, then they have an opportunity to turn it around. But I see these things rumbling underneath people's health issues all the time. And because I do regular blood tests on people, I see these things happening long before, hopefully, those frights happen, which is the idea. And if I can teach people a little bit more about what these markers mean and how they can change them in a relatively short time by making some simple changes, just things with timing of our meals, the choices that we make, the portion sizes, prioritizing sleep, exercise, all of these things that we often think we don't have time to do, you don't have time not to do them. Because if you've got other things going on, you've got family, you have children, you have work, you have big commitments, it's even more important that you start looking after this engine that is going to allow you to facilitate all of that. And that's your body. And so I think the more we know about it, the better.
Absolutely. Where do you guys struggle the most around all of that? Is it around time or?
I mean, I use time as an excuse, but it's actually not a relevant excuse because I've got all the time in the world. Really, I run my own business. I've got great staff. It's more the ability to stay on path. Like I'll do something. I'm one of those guys who, especially in business, like I can set my mind to something and absolutely achieve it. Even it could be an extraordinary goal, but I don't seem to be able to do it with my health. I do it for a period of time. Something goes a bit pear-shaped in other parts of my life, and then I switch off and go back to bad habits.
A big part of changing habits is actually changing your identity.
Yep.
So, if it's funny, I had a woman come into my office recently, and she said, "It's okay. I'm going out for lunch today with a friend of mine, but it's great because she always eats well and she's really fit and she really looks after herself. So I know that it's going to be really easy to have a healthy lunch with her." And I said, "How would she describe you?" And she said, "Oh, I'm the one who is loud at lunch and drinks and eats too much." And that's her identity. And she almost feels like she's letting her friends down if she changes that.
That
And
resonates
there's a lot wrapped up in that. If you're that person and all of a sudden you change your behavior, firstly, there's a lot of peer pressure because people who know you well are like, "Oh, go on, have a drink. One won't hurt you. You only live once." You get all this peer pressure from people. It's their baggage because they want you to join them in what they're doing, and it makes them feel better if you do it too. And so that peer pressure is huge for people. And if you get in a group of guys and you're all at the pub
Yeah.
and you're drinking sparkling water instead of beer, I mean, it's pretty big pressure.
Especially in Australia.
Yeah.
Mm.
You know, so I think that you have to make it your identity. You have to decide who you want to be, and you have to start making all these habits part of your identity, not just things that you do, but actually who you are, and
No,
tie them
it's
to your
quite
core
good.
values.
Yeah.
Do you reckon that's a trap we fall into?
Well, yeah, I mean, being an art dealer, like I'm constantly either networking or socializing, and I do find that a big part of the problem. You know, do talks with 150 people, 120 people at the gallery, and quite regularly. And I'll have a glass of wine with them afterwards. Often get invited to dinner afterwards, and obviously sometimes you'd rather actually be with your family too. So the alcohol is like a social lubricator, and sort of allows that to happen more than what you'd probably like it to. So it's a bit of an excuse, but that's sort of like it is an identity. It is what you just said, really. Something that I've just been used to doing, continuously do.
Yeah. And you've practiced it, so you're really good at it.
Yeah, that's
So we're
right.
going to start practicing some different habits.
Yeah.
It's funny because even like when we catch up, even up at Queensland, we know we did some healthy stuff, but we still do the ritual, go and have a couple of beers or whatever the case.
Yeah.
And it's okay in moderation, but it starts to get on top. And what's the other things like? Also, it's like rewards. Like if I go and do this today, I'm going to reward myself tonight, or these things complain as well. I guess
Yeah, and it's it's a lot to do even with brain chemicals, with dopamine. Like a dopamine hit is a reward, and you can get a dopamine hit from alcohol, from drugs, from gambling, from all sorts of instant gratification things. But you can also get it from having a massage, doing some exercise, getting some sunshine. Like there's other things that you can do that actually is a reward for your body that will make you feel better. You might think that having a few drinks is a great reward after a hard day, but you wake up feeling pretty bad the next day. And if you do it too regularly, you know the impact it can have on your health. So it's about finding other things that you can reward yourself with that you really enjoy.
Right, you Link. What's the vices for you, mate?
Well, that's a good question. I think did a lot of socializing when I was younger. I feel like I got a lot of that out of my system in the Navy for 18 years. But now I'm trying to get into study, and mine is very much in the quiet hours when no one's looking, and it's all about setting a celebratory moment for I've done this and therefore I can celebrate here. And I know the term comfort eating. I mean, the biggest prize for me is a glass of Coke, which I know, you hear that they use that to clean truck engines or do something, but still the pull is strong, and I love a glass. I reckon I'm a sugar addict. I'll be interested to know where the pathology is around sugar today. And it just keeps pulling me back. That's the yo-yo that keeps pulling me back. And, I'll go on maybe 8 weeks. I'm just drinking green tea and water, and I'm feeling good. Actually, I get more energy from that, and then I'll go back into this ups and downs of this Coke roundabout that just never stops. And then I think maybe I'll kick it back down to a lemonade. Maybe that's okay, or maybe I'll have a juice. A fresh juice. I'm in credit with a fresh juice. So I'll be interested to maybe have a look, explore these myths of, is any sugar okay? Do I have to be on green tea and water all the time? How do I balance this out? This is my life struggle. It's sugar. And probably there's caffeine in there if I'm drinking Coke. Probably got a caffeine addiction. I don't know. I don't drink much coffee, but I've drunk far too much Coke.
If you're reaching for sugar for a pick-me-up, then there's another problem. Like you've got issues with your sleep, with your energy level. There's something else going on. So while you might get an instant hit from the sugar, you get this massive rise in your glucose in your blood, but then it plummets to below where it was. When it plummets, then your brain starts to panic and you want more sugar. that sugar also feeds all the nasty opportunistic bacteria in your gut, and they talk to your brain all day long and tell you need more sugar to feed them. So there's this whole system that starts going around. When you have none, you don't really want it. And
No.
your palate actually changes and you don't need it. But when you actually have it there, it lights up the same areas in your brain on an MRI as cocaine. So
There you go.
it is an addictive thing.
Yeah.
Is it
Well, I
true
need
that it's
help.
about 16 teaspoons, isn't it, in a can of Coke?
Yeah, something
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, and despite knowing all of that, you think, oh, I'll just have one, and then, but it builds up. One over a few years can turn into far too much. And I think, how much damage have I done? And then you try and say, well, that's a problem for future Lincoln, but future Lincoln's going to not be very healthy.
Yep.
What about juices as well? Because I think the marketing's out there beautiful, isn't it? You know what I mean? And those days where it's have a fresh juice, but you think you need to have 18 oranges. Can I eat 18 oranges? To have orange juice. Is that some of the marketing that's kind of gone on out there as well around these types of things?
Yeah, it is. If you drink even a whole juice with the pulp and everything, once you've for a start, if it's just juice, it's pretty much the same as drinking Coke as far as your blood sugar goes. Okay, so it's still, even if it doesn't have sugar added, it is sugar, and we're not supposed to juice fruit. So, and that goes for vegetables or anything else. You're supposed to eat it and chew it with fiber, which slows down the release of the natural sugar in it. If you then take, 10 or more oranges and just take the sugar out of them and drink it, then it's a very different reaction to just having fruit. And you wouldn't be able to eat that many oranges because the fiber would stop you. So that's where as nature intended, it's fine to eat and chew the food, but to juice it is never a good idea. Doesn't matter what type of juice, doesn't matter where it came from, doesn't matter if it's green, purple, orange, don't care. Once you grind fiber to a really fine particle, it's no longer fiber, and we drink faster than we can chew and eat. So you're going to get a massive insulin response. And high insulin levels are the things that are going to stop you from accessing stored fat and make you gain weight around your belly.
So 5 years ago, I went on a juicing diet because a health expert told me to do it. And I was into it pretty heavily, again, like I do things pretty hard when I do it. And about 4 weeks later, I was in hospital with pancreatitis.
Doesn't surprise me at
Mm.
all. Doesn't surprise me.
And my sugar levels were 26 or 28 or something. But I
Yeah.
thought I was doing the right thing. And it wasn't all fruit either. It was mainly vegetables, but certainly oranges and pineapple and all that in there. And it put me in hospital.
Yeah, no fiber and a lot of sugar.
Yep.
Yeah.
And you went to a retreat lately too.
Yeah, I went to a great retreat up in Queensland in the hinterland there. It's called Living Valley. It's a bit more of a science base. I find that some of the retreats are sort of glorified day spas, but this one was a little bit more serious, and I sort of felt it was good. There's a lot of keto though, so depending on where your body is at, I mean, it can be good for certain people, I suppose. But I did enjoy it. Mentally, I came back feeling a lot better.
I guess it bothers me when, and a lot of people try to put my program in the box of keto as well, because often we need to put something in a box to understand what it is.
Yep.
And ketosis is something that happens for most of us when we're asleep at night, when we're not eating. Okay, so it's another form of fuel that your body produces to keep your brain fed and to keep us going. Keto diet is purposely choosing extremely low carbohydrate food to lower your insulin and glucose enough to start producing ketones. If you're focusing just on producing ketones, it's the wrong thing to focus on.
Yep.
It may happen as a result of lowering carbs, but we also need fiber, we need vegetables, we need good, healthy quality fats. There are some fats that are good for us, but you were mentioning before bacon and eggs and things for breakfast. So bacon is a highly processed meat and there's nothing much good in it. So there's a way of doing it where you can still get a great balance of food. So if you were to have eggs, but you had some spinach and avocado and high fiber, good fats, then that's fine. But if it's just focused on keto, there's something that they call dirty keto, which is just basically anything as long as it doesn't have carbs in it.
Well, all the staff up there wore a T-shirt that said, "Don't blame the butter for what the bread did."
Yeah.
So they actually say that you can have quite a bit of butter.
Yeah.
Like they were promoting eating a lot of butter. but stay away from the bread. It was just a philosophy that I thought was quite interesting because I'd always been told not to have much butter.
Yeah. Look, if you're having grass-fed butter in moderate amounts in a meal that's balanced, it's fine.
Yep.
And it is better than a processed grain to have.
Or margarine or.
Oh, of
or-
course.
or-
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
So with all that information that's out there, Donna, you've got 3 willing participants here. So just so I mean, can you kind of start guiding us through, and maybe we all did some blood tests here as well.
Mhm.
And I think what would be fantastic is, and I'm sure the boys would agree, is that what we'd love is understand a bit where we're at,
Mhm.
I guess, unpack that, maybe kind of work through some of our current sacred cows that we kind of hold close to us, and then maybe help guide us towards what's sustainable, and what could improved health look like if we kind of start doing some clear trainable things.
Yeah, sure. So will we go through some of the results that
Yeah,
we've
why
had from the
why
blood
not?
test?
Let's
Lincoln,
do it.
we'll
You
start with
happy
you.
with that,
Here we
guys?
go.
Yep.
We've got the
Alright.
St John's ambulance just outside waiting there.
Alright.
Got the
Yep.
defibrillator over there as well, mate.
Yep.
So, as far as we looked at, first of all, your blood sugar control
Yeah.
and the way that your body regulates that. So there's a few markers in that. So we looked at your fasting blood glucose, which
Yes.
is okay. It's sitting at 5. Your fasting insulin is working pretty hard to try to keep it there.
Yep.
So this is what happens with pre-diabetes and diabetes is essentially for 13 to 15 years, your glucose remains normal and your insulin's working harder and harder and harder and harder to try to control it. It means it's spiking up too frequently and for too long, and your insulin is the hormone that controls it. So it's working pretty hard at the moment to keep it there. When your insulin levels are high, that can start pushing up your blood pressure, pushing up your cholesterol. Then you end up on statins, then you end up on blood pressure medication. Nobody's looking at the insulin in the background until your glucose starts to rise. And so at the moment, you're in a situation where your insulin's working way too hard to try to control it. So it would probably take another 10 or so years for that to eventuate into something. But if you stay on the path you're on, it's a possibility. That also is going to impact inflammation in your body. And inflammation is the start of just about every disease process. Everything from diabetes to heart attack to arthritis. Inflammation is usually at the core. So we need to try and keep that as low as possible. Your cholesterol is the actual total cholesterol looks fine, but your HDL, which is your protective cholesterol, is actually low, and your triglycerides, which are the fats floating around in your bloodstream, are actually a bit high. And so that triglyceride and HDL ratio is really important as a predictor of heart disease. And at the moment, it's not a good ratio. So while the overall cholesterol total looks okay, the ratios are not good. That can be changed by making some simple changes in your diet, increasing fiber, reducing sugar, having some fasting between meals. There's some simple things we can put in place, and exercise makes a big difference. To raise your protective cholesterol, also fish oil like omega-3 is a really good thing to include in your diet as well, whether it's in supplement or food. You're vitamin D deficient, which is super common, particularly post-COVID. We've
Yeah.
found it's really common because we all had face coverings and we didn't travel, right? So a lot of people found that they had a vitamin D deficiency. If you're deficient in vitamin D, you can lose muscle tissue.
Yeah.
It suppresses your immune system and can have many other impacts on your health. So it can be as simple as just taking a supplement each day, and that's like your safeguard to sort of keep you where you need to be.
Okay.
Ideally, we like that to be over 100. It's currently sitting at 38, so
Yep.
it's pretty low. And your PSA, which is a prostate measure, there's a median for that, and you're higher than the median for your age bracket.
Yep.
So it's something you'd need to keep an eye on. I'd probably
Okay.
speak to your doctor about it and ask if further testing is required.
Right.
It's not out of range, but it's higher than the median for your age. All of your liver enzymes were good. The only other thing I noticed was that your ferritin, which is your stored iron, it's within range, but it's at a low level for a male.
Yeah.
So our ferritin is like our reserve of iron that we draw from to use in your bloodstream. And if it's low for men or for postmenopausal women, for example, because they don't really have a very high requirement for it, then there could be another reason for that. So you lose iron, or your iron may be low because you're losing it somehow. So I've had one person recently who had a bleeding ulcer in their stomach. They were losing iron that way. They didn't know. You can have poor absorption in your gut for various reasons. Some people who are celiac, for example, will have trouble absorbing it, or you're just not eating enough of it in your diet. So there's several reasons for that. So I'm not sure if any of those would apply to you, but it would be worth investigating further.
Yeah, well, I do have inflammatory bowel disease, which has been
Okay.
going on for 15 years.
Yeah.
So, and I'm definitely not helping that with my high sugar, probably a little bit processed diet. So I'm just kind of listening to all the things you're saying, thinking, what are the things I can do? I'm sure we'll get into that, but it's like you remove the sugar, you eat a bit better, exercise. Is it that simple? I mean, in terms of vitamin D, there's this whole thing where when I go out in the sun, I get burnt easily. So I'm also the king of slip slop slap, so
Yeah, and rightly so in
yeah,
Australia.
and so it's kind of like, does that mean, so what I'm hearing is just go the vitamin D supplement. You don't have to put yourself at risk in the sun
Correct.
because that's another issue. So yeah, is it as simple as just reducing sugar, upping exercise, eating a bit better? Are these the things that could bring this down? I know I don't want to get into the what's happening later, but are these the things that will make a big difference?
And it's surprisingly simple to do.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be, a great big regime that you do that takes a lot of time and brain space. It'll be
Yeah.
changing some habits. But if, for example, when you eat a meal, if you just fast for 5 hours after that meal, minimum,
Yeah.
that's going to start making a difference because it's going to bring down your insulin levels and reduce inflammation. It will give your gut and your intestinal tract a bit of a break,
Yeah.
and you'll find a great result just from doing that.
So this just opened up the fasting. There's so many different things out there. We're all reading different articles on that. It's the 19.5, the 18.6, the 5-2 day fast. Like, in terms of someone simple like me, I've got a lot on. I don't, there's other things you talked about, sleep, trying to balance so many things. Try and get 6 or 7 hours sleep a night. But what is the ideal fasting? What maybe just for me, what should I be? How you're saying 5 hours after a meal, but do I eat at 12 and stop eating at 6? Is that a good? I need some type
And
of
is it
structure.
just a good Lincoln thing, or is it a general thing that you?
Look, I mean, there are medical reasons why people it may not be appropriate for them to fast. But when we're talking about fasting, normally we're talking about 24, 48, longer fasts. All as I'm talking about today is time restricted eating.
Yep.
And it's sort of going back to basics. When I finished school as a kid, I'd get home and say, Mum, I'm hungry. She said, well, you have to wait for dinner. You'll spoil your appetite. So I wasn't allowed to eat until I had dinner. Right. So whereas now, kids are getting picked up from school and mum's got the car full of snacks,
Yeah.
because they might die somewhere between being picked up from school and getting home.
That's
They'll
right.
die of starvation.
Yeah.
So we've been taught this snacking business, and we have to eat every 2 hours to keep our metabolism going, and all of these myths. We've evolved as hunter-gatherers and through feast and famine. So if we curled up and died, after a 12-hour overnight fast, or even after a 24-hour fast, humans wouldn't exist anymore. Okay, so that's why we store body fat. It's to keep us going through times of famine, but there's no more famine. There's only feast, right? So I always say, if you can have at least 5 hours between meals, try to finish eating while it's still daylight and have a minimum 12-hour overnight fast.
Okay, so I'm trying to break that down. I still don't find that simple.
So if you had breakfast if you're eating 3 meals a day, if you had breakfast between 6 and 8 a.m., if you had lunch between 12 and 1, and you had dinner between 5 and 6.
Yeah, so you're saying do finish early to give you a nice overnight. Because I think where everyone gets caught up it's in the late hours of the day. It's not. I think I can be quite disciplined till 6, and then it's like 7, 8 o'clock. There's voices in your head. You start
gremlins.
thinking, I might just celebrate this, or I've earned that, or I've had a hard day, or whatever's going on, and you make excuses, and then suddenly you're in the fridge, and suddenly you've got Fianetta out, and you're going, "How good's this Fianetta?" So what? So
Put a lock on the fridge, mate.
so what you're saying is, okay, so eat earlier in the day, this 5-hour thing. If I'm happy to eat 2 meals, I mean, would it be better for me to be, because I did try this a while ago and it was working well, but then, I threw that all out. But, eating at 12 and then finishing at, say, 7.
Yeah, can you skip brekkie
Can
if
I
you
just
wanted
do
to?
Sure.
12 to 7, 2 good meals in that time? I
Yep.
haven't got my 5 hours between the first and the second. Is that okay? Is that
It'll give you some result. The ideal would be to have a brunch at mid-morning
mid-morning?
and then have an early dinner.
Have it? Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Is
so
that better
this-
than the 3? Or do you like the 3 better? 3
Often
meals
if
better?
people are used to eating 3 meals or more, starting with 3 meals is an easier transition.
Yep.
And then usually by about day 7 to 10 of doing that, you'll wake up in the morning and just say, I actually couldn't eat
So
breakfast.
true. I've started that based off what Donna was saying. So I don't even feel hungry for breakfast now. So I might
Yeah.
have the first meal maybe around 11,
Yep.
and then I'll have the last one about 6:30. But then if something happened with the kids and you got to eat at 7:30, so be it. But then I just see my way through to the end to the brunch again the next day.
And the reason your hunger reduces is because your insulin's reduced and now you're actually you've opened the floodgates, you've accessed stored fat. We've all got 200,000 plus calories of fat sitting on our body waiting for us to
I've probably got a bit
access
more.
it, but
Yeah.
we don't.
I'd challenge that.
See, it's interesting. So, like, obviously, the health clinic I went to recently said, I think their motto was for breakfast, eat like a king, lunch, eat like a prince, dinner, eat like a pawn or prawn.
Pauper.
Pauper, yeah.
Eat like the big
Wrong
prawn.
podcast, mate.
So you're getting told by so-called people who are experts and studied nutrition, let's say, eat as much as you can at breakfast, then have a medium lunch, and then have very little for dinner, like a broth, and they're essentially a broth. And their theory on that was that your tummy then is, when you go to sleep, is not working hard on all that, whether it's steak and veg. And what's your thoughts on that theory?
The reason that I say to finish eating when it's daylight is because it does, as soon as it starts to, so our body clock's set by light in our retina, in our eyes. So as soon as it starts to get dark, and it's harder to do in winter because it obviously gets dark early, but as soon as it starts to get dark, our body starts preparing us for sleep. And so it will lower our temperature and it will start to produce melatonin. If you do anything to raise your temperature, such as eat,
Yep.
it's going to stop you producing melatonin. Now you're going to have trouble sleeping. If you have a bad night's sleep, your cortisol levels, your stress hormones go through the roof. And the next day you're in this fight or flight mode all day where your glucose is high and now you're starving and you're picking at things, the wrong things all day long. And it's this cycle that people get into. So sleep is so important, and you need good sleep hygiene, they call it. And one of those things is to make sure you finish eating at least 3 hours before you want to go to sleep.
That's great. And a lot of people do say to take the melatonin supplements. What do you think about that?
Can work for some people. Melatonin is produced from serotonin, and serotonin is produced in your gut. And so if you have a healthy gut, usually you don't need a supplement.
Shouldn't need it, yeah.
Your body can produce it naturally.
The other thing that resonates with me with just about everything you said so far is the Indigenous population. So if you go back to before we came, and I've got most of the books that are written on their diets and so forth, it was a bit like that. It's feast and famine. Walk for 2 days to get the protein, celebrate the protein, the kangaroo or the bush turkey, whatever it was. Bush berries, bush yams. The ladies would dig for 8 hours a day to get the bush yams out of the ground and stuff like that. So they certainly weren't, like us. It sort of resonates with what you're saying in the sense of
our body is still built for that environment, but our environment has changed enormously.
Yeah.
And our evolution still dictates that our body is designed to go through feast and famine.
Yes.
And of course, famine just doesn't exist in our
Well,
world.
just a quick one. What about shift workers? So I'm already doing shift work now at the bureau, 12 hours. Like it'll start 6:50, finish at 6:20. So day shift. There will be times for night shift. And then as a paramedic, we've done a lot of study on, fatigue and stress and all the things that paramedics do. They do an incredible job. And I hope to be one eventually. And so they're doing 12-hour shifts through the night. So there's just some jobs out there where you can't get the sleep you need, or you've got to be sleeping at different times. Have you got kind of any advice, well, for me and for those type of people?
Yeah, it's a great question. And shift workers will always have issues with health based on being out of sync with their
Yeah.
circadian rhythm. The best thing you can do as a shift worker is still really implement a routine of timing.
Yeah.
So the same thing will apply even if it's on the other side of the clock. Once you've eaten, you're not eating again for at least 5 hours. Don't eat for at least 3 hours before you go to bed. Try to have a 12-hour fast every 24 hours.
Yep.
So if you can work that into your shift, and you'll find it's quite easy to do, and that's your non-negotiable, then it's the best thing that you can do in that situation. I actually have a surgeon who did my program recently, and he sometimes gets stuck in surgeries for 10 hours in a row. And he said he's never operated with such mental clarity as he does now, because he's used to fasting and he can access stored fat. So he doesn't flag, halfway into the operation. He actually feels great.
What about for the coffee drinkers? I know shift workers tend to be coffee
Don't
drinkers.
shatter my dreams here, mate. Come on.
What
I
is
love
coffee,
coffee.
allowable? I mean, can people be taking a coffee every hour to keep them going?
No.
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 No. I usually say for, your normal day, if you have up to 2 caffeine drinks before midday,
Right.
it takes at least 10 hours to process caffeine out of your body. Some people it takes longer. So if you have a coffee at midday, it's 10 p.m. It's still working its way out of your body. So again, interferes with melatonin production, interferes with sleep. At the end of the day, if you have a poor sleep, your energy's far worse the next day. So the coffee's not doing you any favors.
So you're saying no coffee after 12, really?
No.
But for a shift worker who's awake all night, they could be having it a bit later because they might be going to sleep at midday the next day.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
at least if
I don't
you
want to
keep
ruin the
in,
dreams of all the shift workers that can't drink on shift.
Shout out
if
to
you
the
just
shift
keep
workers.
in mind that 10 hours processing time for the
Yeah.
caffeine
Okay.
before you go to bed.
So what about Adam over here?
Adam, okay, so we've got some interesting results for you.
Do I need to give him a cuddle?
You might.
Okay.
You might after this one. So fasting glucose is very high, so well into the diabetic range, which I believe you're aware of. Fasting insulin, don't think I've ever seen insulin that high. And I see insulin a lot. There may be other issues around that. So
Can you unpack that a bit? What does that mean?
sure. So every time we eat or drink anything, we get a rise in our blood glucose. That's normal. And our pancreas pumps out insulin. And insulin's a hormone that will grab hold of that glucose and store it, either push it to our liver or wherever it needs to go. And if we're producing too much glucose too often, so eating the wrong food, eating them too frequently, eating too much, alcohol, which can impact our liver, there are many different things that can, even stress. There are many things that can cause our glucose to rise. And if that happens too frequently over a long period of time, our insulin is just overworked. And eventually our insulin will fail, and then our glucose will start to rise. It's just not able to manage it anymore. And at that point, your doctor will normally notice that your glucose is rising, and then the answer to that often is medication to try to lower your glucose.
Yep.
Which is, I believe you've been
Yes.
there with all that.
Yep.
While it's, for me, while that's sometimes the only option for people if they're not willing or able to make the change, type 2 diabetes is 100% reversible.
Yep.
So it's only lifestyle changes required. For me, the medication is like the bath tap is running flat out and you're scooping the water out with a bucket. If you just turn off the tap, you've got no more problem.
Yep.
So, that's my idea with the way that we're talking about eating is going to turn that around. And we reverse diabetes every day.
Yeah, my doctor's told me the same thing. So,
Yeah, it's completely reversible. It will get to a point where having really high glucose in your blood over a long period of time is going to really affect your organs. It will affect your eyesight. It can affect your ability to heal. It can affect your nervous system. It can increase your risk of stroke and heart attack. So it's not a good place to be.
Yes. Yep.
So we really do need to address it, and it can be addressed really quickly.
Yep.
So I'm more than happy to help you to do that.
Let's give it a crack.
Your HbA1c tells us how much glucose is stuck to your red blood cells, and your red blood cells have a lifespan of 3 months. So it tells us over a longer period of time how well that's been controlled.
Yep.
And it's almost double what it should be.
Yep.
Your cholesterol is high.
Yep.
They were unable at the lab to measure your LDL cholesterol because your triglycerides, the fats in your blood, were too high.
Yep.
So at the level your triglycerides are there, your blood, you would visibly be able to see the fat in that blood sample.
Yeah, well, when was it the health thing they did? They take a bloody sample and put it up on the screen.
Yeah.
And it shows you the blood cells with the white stuff everywhere. And he said that's fat.
Yeah.
So he said it's not ideal.
Yeah. It's your heart is trying really hard to pump around thick soup.
Well, my resting heart rate the last week for 4 or 5 days was between 120 and 136 sitting on the couch.
Yeah. And you're on blood pressure medication as well?
Diadeprex,
Yeah. Okay. Your iron levels are normal, I'm pleased to say.
Well,
There you go.
Yes,
Well done.
we've got to win.
And
We're
your
going to take that
PSA,
win.
your prostate measure is actually very good. So that's great.
Well,
Yes,
that's good because
well done.
my dad had prostate cancer, so
Okay.
we're going to keep an eye on that one.
When I saw how high your triglycerides were, I went back to the lab and asked them to also test your thyroid function because that can sometimes be involved in that.
Yep.
And it's fine. So that's not the
I was always
cause.
worried about that one because there's a bit of thyroid issues in the family. So,
Yeah. Well, that
that's
one's
good.
okay.
Yep.
Your inflammation marker is 4 times what it should be.
Yep.
Your liver function is not good.
No.
What's the inflammation marker? What's that one?
You didn't have that one in yours. Yeah.
Okay.
And you're vitamin D deficient.
Yeah.
So again, same thing that we talked about, a daily supplement. So vitamin D is a fat-soluble vitamin. So it's preferentially absorbed into your fat cells,
Yep.
leaving very little in your bloodstream.
Yep.
So if you're carrying extra weight, it's really common to be low in vitamin D.
Yep. So take a supplement.
Daily
Yep,
supplement, yeah.
Yep.
hmm There's something called a HOMA IR score, which measures your level of insulin resistance, and the margin is very small. So once it gets over 3, you're in the severe range for insulin resistance. Yours was 94.
Mm.
So that's up there. It's pretty high.
Mm.
Yeah.
So when we look at all this, Donna, I mean, we've kind of trying to simplify and kind of work through, understand where the baseline is at the moment. We're socializing because we're a crew, and we kind of, the social wellness of all of us wants to kind of keep each other accountable with all of this. And now the next stage is the start, right?
Mm.
Can you kind of really break down simply for us now, what are the steps, right, from here? Because what would be amazing is that, we rally together, work through this, keep each other accountable, and then start to then measure this again in maybe even just 30 days to see where it's actually at. And then we can report back out through the podcast as well, so people can kind of track it and see, I guess, from the ideation of this all the way through to the progress of it. So can you now kind of work us through what are the steps, the simple steps we can take now to start to address some of these markers?
So we've talked about the timing of meals, which is really important.
Yep.
And it's obviously what you eat. So we've talked a little bit about fasting times and intermittent fasting and time-restricted eating, which is fine, but that only tells you what you're doing when you're not eating. So it's really important to think about what you're doing when you are eating, because some of these time-restricted eating programs will allow you to eat in certain time windows, but what people are eating is sending their glucose and insulin so high, and they're almost in this crazed state trying to get in as much food as they can before they're not allowed to. So it almost becomes this kind of binge purge mentality, which is not healthy, right? And I'm sure, there are many programs out there that we've all done that tell us to do that. So it's about just going back to basics, just basic food, unprocessed food. For example, for breakfast.
Give us a breakfast.
Yeah. So for example, for breakfast, you might have a couple of eggs cooked any way you like, with some avocado, which is full of fiber and good quality fats, some spinach or any other vegetable that you like, some sort of fiber, right? Scrambled eggs or an omelette are
Tomato,
easy.
okay.
You can have some tomato, yep.
All right. Not too acidic?
No.
All right.
No,
Okay.
you can do that.
All right.
So something like that would be a good breakfast. And you find when you eat savory in the morning, you're not hungry for at least 5 hours. And if there's some fats and fiber in it, that makes you feel full. So you can easily go 5 hours. If you're trying to eat low fat, like we've all been told, in the 70s that we should go low fat, which is rubbish. If you're having no fat in your diet, you're hungry in 2 hours.
Mm-hmm.
If you're trying to drink juices, you're hungry in 2 hours. So have a decent breakfast. You
What
can get
about
it
the
at any
toast?
cafe.
The toast. The dreaded toast. Avo on toast.
I
Smashed
remember
Avo on toast.
Donna told me toast is cake.
Toast is cake. Surely not.
What about the rye breads and stuff like that? Are they any good? Is there any benefit to the rye?
If they have fiber in them, they're better. To be honest, I think that particularly for you, Adam, to make some significant changes, this is more than just changing diet long term. This part of it has to be like a therapeutic intervention. This is where we need to get your health under control. We need to get you out of the diabetic range, and we need to give your liver a holiday, and we need to do everything we can to get you down. So I wouldn't be having bread
no
or
bread.
any processed grains or flours or anything at all. Just for 28 days, just to
Okay.
get
Let's
you out
measure
of
it, boys,
this.
just for that 28 days
Yeah.
and see where it can
Yeah,
land.
and then we can start reintroducing those things in moderation, no problem. But I would be saying no alcohol and no processed grains for 28 days.
What about cheeses?
Some cheese is okay. I tend to, it can sometimes be a bit inflammatory for people. So for 28 days, I kind of like to remove everything that's going to potentially do that, particularly you, Lincoln, with your gut issues. I think it would be good just to eliminate
Cheese. Okay.
any dairy,
I like
just
cheese,
for
Adam. I'm with
Yeah,
you.
I love
just
it.
for 28 days, just to get the
So
inflammation.
no
down.
dairy. Just
It's like everything that I really love is I'm not supposed to have. I'm sure of it.
No,
Yeah.
well, could you eat eggs and stuff for
I
brekkie?
love eggs. I love
Yeah,
eggs.
Great.
Yeah.
Well,
And you
I
can
love-
get that.
I love what they come with.
Mm.
Bit of bacon. Sorry.
So you're going to have that, and then, you've got 5 hours where you're not eating, okay? And then for lunch, you're going to choose something like, chicken or beef or fish or some sort of protein with, again, tons of fiber. So whether that, if you're out and you get a salad with it, or you get a side of veggies or something that's going to have some kind of fiber in it. Fiber helps everyone thinks fiber is about pooping. That's that's what they think fiber is about. Fiber lowers your LDL cholesterol. It makes you feel full. It feeds all the friendly bacteria in your gut. It blunts the glucose response to a meal. It does so much, and we tend to forget about it, particularly when we're busy.
What are the good, what are
what's
the
the
good
high fiber?
vegetables? Yeah.
Most things that grow above the ground are going to give you a lower glucose and insulin response than the root vegetables.
So are the above the ground's better?
Yes.
Above ground.
Yes.
So can you give us like the top three?
You can have broccoli, you can have spinach. Most green things are fine.
Green things.
Green things are great.
Green things.
Radish, different coloured capsicum.
What we'll do is we'll publish on the website as well the things to eat, and then we'll put it. I know because you guys want to have the details, so we'll put that together.
Great. That'd be good.
So what I've been doing for the last probably 4 days since I had this bit of a health scare is getting a packet of the pre-mixed salad, so just spinach and leaves, and I tip that into a bowl, and then I've been buying that only because it seems to be the only way you buy it is that the already cooked chicken, the smoked chicken that's like wrapped. cut up like half of one of those, a little bit of feta, and then salad dressing. I've sort of had that for lunch before the last 5 days.
Yep. There's probably not enough fiber just in the
That's
leaves.
what I was thinking, and I still feel hungry afterwards.
Yeah,
That's
you
the big
would.
problem.
Yeah, you would. And there's not much fat and there's not much fiber. If you added some avocado, if you had a really good quality extra virgin olive oil,
Yep.
and you added that as part of a dressing, there's lots of things you can add into that
Yeah.
veggie wise
Yeah.
that will make you feel a lot fuller.
Yeah, because that's a real problem. Because like about an hour and a half later, I'm sort of starving.
Yeah,
I feel like I'm
I
starving.
would be starving.
Even though
if
the
I ate
bowl that I eat is like this,
Yeah.
yeah, big.
The leaves are almost nothing.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then you just replicate that for dinner.
Yeah. So,
Yep.
but dinner might be barbecue as a steak. Grass fed is really
Yeah,
important.
of course. Yep.
So grass fed means that the fats and oils in that meat are much better for you. Grain fed, not so
Well,
good.
it's what the cow was intended to eat, wasn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So grass fed, really important. Same with butter, really important that it's
Agreed.
grass
What
fed.
about chickens? They're not grass fed, are they? So
Chickens are a big
Pasture
problem.
raised chicken is
Yeah.
good.
So so the chicken we're looking for, well, the best chicken to eat if I'm going to Coles or Woolies,
Probably
what's
the Lilydale.
Lilydale?
Just as long as it's pasture raised
Macro?
chicken, like
Pasture-raised.
free range or pasture raised chicken.
Pasture raised.
When they start putting them in feedlots and feeding them
well,
pellets and
steroids.
ethically, that's
you know,
not
it's
even a good
both
thing, is it?
ethically and
Just, yeah.
health
And
wise
they wash
not
them
a
with
good
chlorine.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's for another show.
Yeah.
Show that one. And what are the kind of the things that we need to remove?
Yeah, I
so
think it's
obviously
probably
the
that's what it's
sugar,
about, yeah.
the sugar.
So any drinks, like what can I drink? Tell me what I can and can't drink, and I'll follow it, Donna.
Okay. You can have up to 2 caffeinated drinks in the morning or before midday.
Well, I have green tea. I don't drink coffee.
That's got
That's still
caffeine too.
caffeinated.
Yeah, so I'm checking.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
So I only
wouldn't
can
have more
have-
than 2.
I only can have 2 green
Yep,
teas.
Yep.
Jeez. Bit
Go
harsh.
for peppermint, or there's heaps
Oh,
of great
so I can
teas.
have-
Other
just
teas are
caffeine, mate.
fine. It's just the ones that have caffeine.
Oh, I got to find.
So any herbal
caffeine-free.
teas are fine.
Okay. herbal tea.
Try to avoid the really sweet ones.
Yeah.
And you can have bone broth anytime. Bone broth is great for your gut. It doesn't break a fast, and it's really good for you.
It's expensive.
And it's quite filling.
Yeah.
Yeah, it can be expensive.
I've been buying those, purple cans where they're like $34 for a small can, but these are nice.
You can
bone
get
broth.
it in paste, in a
Yep.
jar. You can get it in powder, freeze dried. You can get it in liquid form. You can get it in little cubes that they call broth bombs. There's all sorts of different ways of
Yeah,
having
they're
it.
good.
But it's a really easy where you can get hot water, you can have broth. Yeah, so it's a really good thing to have. You can have sparkling water. You can squeeze lemon into it. Having lemon juice, like into a bit of water, even apple cider vinegar,
Yeah.
is going to blunt the glucose response to a meal.
Yeah,
So
I
if
do
you
that every
drink
day.
that before you eat,
Yeah.
it will actually blunt the glucose response
That's a
to a
good-
meal. So it's
Yeah.
a really good tip
So do
for
you
anyone
actually
with
buy
high
lemon
blood
juice
sugar.
at the supermarket, or are you buying
I would prefer a fresh lemon.
a fresh lemon? So get
Lemon or lime. Yeah.
All right, lemon and lime.
So I got
Easy.
that habit from that place I went and stayed at. They in the fridge
Yeah.
every morning. They have a thing of apple cider vinegar and then one of lemon juice, and you just go like 30 to 60 mils of both with half a glass of water, bang, before every meal.
Yeah, I agree.
And I started doing that at home, and it does actually feel good.
All right.
There's something about it.
How
And
much
you'll find
water?
you're less hungry.
How much water do we need to be drinking a day?
2 to 3 liters.
All right.
You sometimes find if you've had high insulin, when your insulin levels drop quite suddenly through changing your diet, while it's a good thing, it can release a lot of stored excess fluid you've been hanging on to. So some people find that they're peeing every 5 minutes and even having loose stools because they're getting rid of all this extra fluid. In that case, you can get dehydrated very easily and you can lose electrolytes. So it's really important to make sure that you're drinking plenty of water.
Yep. What's your take on salt?
Salt is a really interesting topic. So it's actually sugar that's a bigger problem than salt.
Yep.
So, there are some medical conditions that will counter that, but sugar pushes up insulin. Insulin makes your kidneys work differently and it makes you hold on to excess fluid. So that's what I was just saying. As soon as your insulin's gone, that drops, and usually people's blood pressure drops at the same time. So we often have people do the program whose blood pressure drop quite suddenly and they have to see their doctor to talk about their medication dose because now they don't need it anymore. So that salt is always the taboo topic when you have high blood pressure, but it's more sugar than it is salt.
So we're sitting here in 30 days. What is there anything else that we'll be thanking ourselves for to do now that we haven't kind of covered that you think?
Exercise.
Okay. And what is so just say, like, everyone's flat out. Can you just kind of run us through, if what's the minimum requirement? We always want to do more, but if there was a minimum requirement, and just kind of simplify that for us.
We all have a way of counting steps now, whether you've got a phone or an Apple Watch, or like everyone kind of knows how many steps they're doing. So if you're currently doing 1,000 steps a day, I don't want you to try and do 10 because you'll probably kill yourself. So, if you can increase what you're currently doing and continue to do that every week, that would be great.
Yeah.
So if you're currently doing 1,000, go for 2. If you're doing 2, go for 4. Just, try to and make it a weekly average. So set yourself a weekly goal, not a daily goal, because you'll have days where you go, I only did 1,000 today. Oh, well, I'll do better tomorrow. No, you just fell behind your weekly goal. So set yourself a weekly goal to keep yourself honest. And strength training is so important for metabolic health. And for men,
weights.
yeah, for men it's important because it helps to boost your testosterone.
I was going to ask you about testosterone because on your results,
It's low.
Mine's diabolical.
Yes, it is. So being overweight, having high blood sugar, and not doing strength exercise will push your testosterone down. So doing strength training and losing body fat is going to allow it to come back up again.
Is there any other good ways to increase testosterone?
Not really. It will reduce as we age. It will reduce more rapidly if you have these health and lifestyle issues.
Yep.
But strength training goes a long way. So we lose about 1% of our muscle tissue every year after the age of 35. So if you start thinking about that, by the time you're 50,
It's 15%.
right. So, and that's if you don't use it. Okay. So we just have to work a bit harder to maintain it now than we used to. So strength training 3 times a week is a non-negotiable.
3 times?
Yeah, 3 times a week. And that doesn't have to be at the gym. If you don't like going to the gym, that's fine. Do it at home. Either use your body weight. There are so many apps and so many things out there now that you can just follow from home that either require a set of dumbbells or nothing. And you can do it, at home in your lounge room. Doesn't matter. Don't have to leave the house, but non-negotiable 3 times a week. We've got to get that muscle back, and your muscle is the most insulin sensitive organ you have. So if your muscle is good, it will actually take up 80% of the glucose from a meal that you eat.
Sounds funny then. Is it worth doing the bigger muscle groups more because of that? Like, as in, will your legs absorb more because they are bigger muscles?
With weight training, I like to keep it balanced, just to avoid injury. So, legs, back, chest, shoulders, arms, abs, all of it needs working. But you're right, the bigger compound movements are going to build that muscle. And if you're a guy who's done exercise in the past and you just haven't done it for a while, you've got muscle memory. That's coming back so much faster than someone who's never trained before. So, you'll actually start to remember the feeling of being strong, and it feels good. And you'll notice a massive difference in the way that you're controlling your blood glucose as well.
You've got big biceps, Link. They're coming back, mate.
Yeah, famous for my biceps. That's all I carry.
So I think if we kind of sit back, it's interesting. Like, we've kind of made the complex simple and the simple compelling now. Like, guys, is there anything else, I guess, that, is there anything else to address? I mean, we can work through all this. And I guess the other question is, alcohol and these types of things and sugar. Are you guys up for giving that a break for 30 days and see what happens?
Yeah, I think the thing, and I was doing it actually in an assignment at uni, the one thing I got marked down was the psychology. Like, you can put a plan in place, but if the psychology isn't there, so that's my last question, Donna, that's the thing I think that's got me over the journey is I'm Oprah Winfrey. I'm up and down, like a yo-yo. I love Oprah Winfrey, but so how do I maintain consistency with my psychology? Have you got any tips on that? Because that's what's going to be the biggest challenge.
I think that's going to be pretty common in the general public too.
Absolutely. Yeah. And as I said, this sort of needs to become your identity. So we're not thinking about this as a weight loss journey. This is a rest of your life, how you want to live, journey. Yeah.
Yeah.
So they have to be, so there will be some permanent changes. Often people will say to me, what happens when I go back to normal? Your normal before was what got you to where you are today.
Yeah.
And we're not going back there. So there has to be like a new normal.
Yeah.
And you have to set yourself goals that you know are doable for you. There's no point doing something so hardcore that you haven't got a hope in hell of keeping it there and you feel like rubbish. But it has to be, maybe even set up some goals for yourself about what you'd like to achieve and where you'd like to be in the next 12 months. And they won't be necessarily, oh, I want to fit into this size jeans or I want to weigh this much on the scales, but something about doing something with your kids or being able to do something physical, set yourself a physical goal, whatever those things are that might be important to you, and it will be different for everyone, but they need to be more compelling than a number on the scales or a notch on your belt.
Is there any secret tips that you've learnt to help change that identity? Is there anything that you can think about that, or tell us, that makes that identity change easier?
It's about having a
I
compelling...
mean, you just sort of answered it, but is there
Yeah.
anything else? Because I think that's a huge one for me. Like,
It's a compelling reason to be that person that you want to be. Like, it's far deeper than even health or aesthetics. It's tied to your core values. So for me, I watched both of my parents die, one of cancer and one of heart disease and then vascular dementia. It's really strong in my family. I don't want to go there.
no.
So I do this for health. I don't care how much I weigh. I stay in shape because I do this for my health. If I go out with friends, I don't care about peer pressure. I don't have to, they don't have, if they want to bag me about what I eat and what I do, that's fine. I don't really care. Like, I honestly don't, if
No.
they're going to worry about that, I don't care what they eat. And because of I'm in this industry, I'm often getting comments like, oh, we can't eat that because Donna's here. And, oh, I wonder what Donna's eating tonight. And I get so much pressure from people. I don't care.
Yep.
Because I am who I am. I've got a really strong reason for being that way. And I'm comfortable with that.
And just to clarify, is it the weights times 3 times a week for blokes like us? Is that all, or are you saying, is that from a exercise point of view? Is that enough? Is that what you
And
want
your
us to do?
And your steps.
Pardon? And the
Just
steps.
walk.
So no, don't have to go for big runs.
No.
Don't have to.
No.
Yep. All right. Yep.
No.
I think we'll kind of come into the end now, but you guys, thanks for coming on and being somewhat vulnerable today as well, because it's obviously, I reckon there's a lot of people listening, and I've been there as well, and I'm kind of I've had the luxury of being trying to spend some time on myself recently to try and get there, but also knowing you both really well. You got beautiful families, really loved, and we're kind of hitting towards mid-40s and 50s now as well. Like, it's, I want us to all be there sharing stories, drinking tea into the future as well. So hopefully, Donna, today it's been terrific, because I think today I got out of it is it is actually quite simple, right? It's just a decision that we've got to make, and then providing some structure to it, and then kind of shifting, I guess, our identity a little bit, and how we kind of portray ourselves to the world, and kind of shift around all of that. So thanks, boys. It was awesome. So we're in.
Yep.
Yeah.
We're in. All right. And then, so we'll come back and we'll kind of measure again in 30 and 60 days. But like we said, this isn't a diet. This is a way of life. And Donna, thank you so much. I don't know how many thousands of people that you've helped. You have got this amazing way of making the complex simple and the simple compelling for people. And that really makes a difference to a lot of people. If people are listening today, how else can they kind of hear about you and, I guess, some of the programs that you do?
So I've got an online platform called astonrx.com, and we have several programs around metabolic health and gut health. So that's pretty much where I operate from now. And even though it's an online program, there's an enormous amount of support. I have an entire team that backs it and provides support. And there's community support too, of people exactly the same as you who are on the same day experiencing the same thing with the same questions, and a big forum with everybody chatting away to themselves as well as with my team. So it works well.
And what's that website again?
AstonRx.com.
Fantastic. And been through the program. Rach has as well. Been involved with Donna for a very long time, and it can be absolutely life changing. So the last thing I'll just say today also is that if you've got friends that are kind of struggling or these types of things, this is where social wellness plays a huge amount. You know, kind of sticking up, getting behind your mates, and doing all these things. So it's kind of simplify, socialize, start, you know, and hopefully we get the start now and we go from there. So thanks very much for coming in today. It was an absolutely pleasure having everyone on, and let's check in again soon. Cheers.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thanks,
you.
Ryan.
Thanks, Donna.
Thanks, Donna.
Awesome.